story and situation through. I pro-life generation. I believe that abortion is not the answer for unplanned pregnancy. My birth mother was faced with a decision that many women today are facing, without the means of properly raising a child. The most ethical decision and chose adoption. With her courageous and unselfish decision to make such an awesome decision, I now have the ability to thrive and succeed in life. Don't you think that everyone has the option or needs the ability to thrive and succeed in life?
I certainly do, and I love the word you used. You said, my mother chose. My mother chose. And we want other people to have that opportunity to choose as well. And when we do, my whole thing, when people ask me what are the three most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing. Our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education, the economic security of their families, clean environment in which they can thrive, a world at peace in which they can succeed and reach their aspirations. But many of our friends who are so intent on when life begins in their view do not subscribe to that after the child is born to meet the needs of the children. So I hope you will join us in our quest to say that all of the children in our country, that 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty, goes to sleep hungry at night in the greatest country that ever existed in the history of the world. And why? Because we haven't made the right decisions to lift all of those children up. And that's why I say to my colleagues, show me your values, show me your budget. What are you doing to lift these children up? So I hope that respecting your mother's to make her ability to make her choice, I hope you'll help us help all of these children to be able to thrive when their mothers make that choice to have them as well.
It's thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
It's very likely that the Supreme Court will be asked to weigh in on any number of President Trump's executive orders that have come down in the last week or so. One aspect of the order that came down Friday evening, President Trump's immigration executive order, is the suspension of the U.S. refugee admissions program for 120 days. I want you to meet Bushra. She is a Yemeni refugee who was personally affected by the executive order. Bushra.
My name is Bushra. And I'm a refugee. Recently, my mom, she wasn't able to come to the US because of the standard that Donald Trump signed recently. Before 4 weeks, my dad passed away because we didn't have any medicine back then in Yemen because of the siege.
Sorry.
And my mom is now recently living in a destroyed house because of the airstrikes. And she wasn't able to come to the United States because of this decision that Donald Trump did. So my question is, what is the democratic leadership could help us what could you help us and our people to ensure that more families are not torn apart?
Again, thank you. Thank you for your courage in sharing your story. I'm sorry about the loss of your dad and the situation that your mother is in. When I received this invitation to come here this evening, I thought I would be talking about the Affordable Care Act and what that means to the American people, how it can address income inequality in our country, how it protect God's creation, this planet, from degradation and the rest. And in the meantime, we had this ban on people coming from Syria into the country, largely Muslim, and the prohibition on other people coming in as well. They don't want to call it a ban, even though they called it a ban, and they said the press called it a ban because the press reported on them calling it a ban. But that's what this is. And if you detect some impatience in my voice, it's because your family is suffering because our president is reckless, and his administration is incompetent. How they did this, And why they did this is because they're grand illusionists. Anytime they have a problem with something, they create another problem. They see the immigration problem looming, and so they decide they're going to on an earlier schedule, appoint a justice of the Supreme Court always to change the subject. It's a decoy, 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 decoy. I was very proud because scores of my members were at the airports all weekend, and some of them are there still now because this ban has not been rescinded. And it is, we follow the lead of our spiritual leaders when the Pope talks about it is unchristian to turn refugees. When some of our cardinals say it is un-American to not accept strangers, as the Bible says, strangers, into our country in need. In need. The Statue of Liberty, as we all said, is in tears because of what they had done. So this again comes back to Abraham Lincoln, who probably has tears in his eyes as well. This is about public sentiment. And some of the polling looks like, oh, I think what the president's doing, because they really don't understand. The president has made us less safe. 900 diplomats sent him a letter saying, you're making us less safe. This isn't the right thing to do, but it is red meat to some of the people that he wants to continue to support him. And again, he had to change the subject by appointing a justice of the Supreme Court because the opposition was mounting and the education of the American people was increasing on this subject. So I would like to take some responsibility for individual case, but that's what our members are doing at airports around the country. I think we should be grateful to the women for marching on the day after the inauguration because that was spontaneous, Jake. You know, that wasn't organized by politicians or establishment. It was spontaneous. It was organic. Women just said, I'm going. I'm showing up all over the country, all over the world, every continent. World. And therefore, when this started to happen at the airports, people said, I'm going to the airport because they showed their power. They knew they had power. They showed their power. And that was very helpful in trying to at least even open the door, physically open the door to the customs offices to get the cases made for individuals. So I'd like to work with you on your mother's situation. And I thank you for sharing your story, which is a story of so many people and addresses our values as a country.
Thank you, Bushra. I appreciate it. I want you to meet, obviously now that everybody shares that view, I want you to meet Nudal Tamer. He's a Lebanese-American Muslim. He's from Dearborn, Michigan. He has a different take on President Trump's refugee policy. Please.
Congresswoman Polosi, you from refugees and teaches teenagers to hate anyone who's not Muslim.
Yes.
How can you want to guarantee the safety for all Americans?
Thank you so much. Are you finished? I'm sorry.
Guarantee the safety for all Americans if we let these refugees to come.
Okay. Well, thanks to our comprehensive immigration reform, which we've had before, our country is blessed with many newcomers, including yourself, to reinvigorate America with your hopes, dreams, aspirations, courage, determination to make the future better. That optimism is all American, and every refugee, a newcomer who comes with all that determination makes America more American, in my view. The reason I oppose the specific thing that President Trump did was the following. Refugees have the most stringent vetting of all newcomers to our country, the most stringent vetting. And so when he cuts off Syria, largely those are refugees coming, the most stringent vetting. We take an oath to support and defend the American people and the Constitution of the United States. It's our first responsibility. So we're not casual about our our need to protect the American people. But we have to be strong and we have to be smart. We don't have to be reckless and rash. And we don't have to discriminate against people because of their religion. And so that's why I oppose what he's done with the 7 countries. He has no case, in my view, with the refugees. That's why I identify with what Pope Francis has said about that. But make no mistake, I thank you for your question. I thank you for your courage coming to America. I've been to Lebanon a number of times. I've seen the situation there, and it's a wonderful country, and I hope that the way things go, that people can enjoy staying home and enjoying their lives there, as well as exercising the right to come to America. But what the president did and the manner in which he did it has not made us more safe. And that's why I oppose what he has done.
Linda, let me ask you, are there additional, you oppose President Trump's executive order, additional screening measures that you do support, separate from what President Trump did?
Well, we had, President Obama instituted more stringent vetting when there was a threat, to prevent a threat from happening. And so President Trump now said, I just did the same thing President Obama did. No, he did not. That was about vetting. It wasn't about banning. And of course, we have to vet people coming into our country. And as I said, for the refugees, that's the most stringent vetting process of all.
You don't think anything more might be...
women and children. We have to make sure.
Afoot and lighthearted, I take to the open road. Healthy, free, the world before me, the long brown path before me, leading wherever I choose. The east and the west are mine. The north and the south are mine. All seems beautiful to me.
When you've been making delicious natural cheese for over 100 years like Kraft has, you'll learn a lot about what people want.
Honey, do we have like a super creamy cheese with a top of spice already in it? Oh, thanks.
Run up the cheese.
Okay.
BP engineers use underwater robots so they can keep watch over operations below the sea, even from thousands of feet above. Because safety is never being satisfied and always working to be better.
Every batch of kettle wine must be personally approved with a signature of a member of the NOLAD family. And the signature must be approved by a forgery expert, and a penmanship expert, and an identity theft expert.
What was the name of your first pet?
Babe.
Babe is correct.
You don't understand. It has to be perfect.
You okay?
I'm starting to remember. I have to find out.
Lion, the feel-good movie we all need,
That beautiful boy.
is now nominated for 6 Academy Awards,
I love you so much.
including Best Picture.
Wait for me.
Lion, rated PG-13.
Welcome to the history of comedy. Come along as we explore the surprising stories behind comedy's most influential faces, films, and funniest moments.
Whoa!
From the punchlines,
Sexual favor.
the boundary.
More beef stew? I don't think so. Say yes to more. Call now.
Breaking savings report here from Fusillo Toyota of Grand Island. The conditions are just right for you to save huge.
Yes, they are. And if you're shopping for a pre-owned vehicle, I suggest you get to Grand Island if you sell a Toyota.
How about the 2014 Ford Fiesta for $10 to $88?
10 to 88.
I don't know what's going on around
See more online. We're open 7 days a week. Yes, for service as well. It is huge.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the border wall that President Trump wants to build. I want you to meet Dr. Mike Vickers. He is a veterinarian from Texas. He owns a 1,000-acre ranch on the Mexico-U.S. border. Dr. Vickers.
Congresswoman Polosi, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Dr. Vickers.
County, Texas. It's a little bit off the border, but it's very close. There in Brooks County, Texas, my closest neighbor is a Border Patrol checkpoint 4.5 miles away. It's one of the most active checkpoints in the nation for human and drug smuggling, controlled by the Mexican drug cartels. Imagine this situation. You go to the grocery store, you come home, you live out on a ranch, you pull up into your, up in front of the house, and in the yard, your dogs are playing with something that looks like a ball. But upon further investigation, you find out it's actually a human head, a skull, with still brain matter in it, a woman's skull. We found her body 150 yards from our back door a short time later the next day. She had a broken ankle. We find hundreds of bodies in Brooks County over the past decade. 56 the last count last year, and it may be over 60. A few years ago, there was 129. Most of these are within 15 or 20 minutes of my front door. The body count is staggering. We be a man. We find a lot of women that are left behind. Women leave the groups to avoid sexual assault. And we have a lot of women that we save that have been sexually assaulted. It's incredible. On that subject, one of the most disturbing events for my wife was to find a rape tree within 300 yards of our front door. Border Patrol and our citizens are at risk whenever they encounter these smugglers. I've had Border Patrolmen assaulted on my ranch, and these guys are our heroes. They really are. My wife has had encounters with gang members at the back door, and she's had encounters with gang members at the front door.
Sir, I don't mean to be rude if you could get to the question, just because there are a lot of people that want to ask.
Our property damage is staggering. My question to you is this. Will you and your Democrat colleagues support President Trump in building the wall or fence, shutting down the sanctuary cities, and giving more manpower to the Border Patrol? Give us more Border Patrol agents. We need at least another 1,000 more in the Rio Grande Valley sector, and we need at least another 1,000 more in the Laredo sector. That's my question.
Thank you, Dr. Vickers.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the sensitive presentation that you made about the experience that you have there. The question is not about, do we need to protect our borders? Of course we do. Is it effective to build a wall to the tune of tens, could be $40 billion? And you know, and I know that the Mexican government is not going to pay for that. So where does that come from? But even if it costs 10 cents, is it an answer? Does it produce the result that you need to see and that we as Americans need to do to protect our borders? A lot of the thinking is we need more technology, we need more manpower. Fencing, it's not effective. Our city of San Francisco is a sanctuary city, and we see it as a place where it makes us safer. It makes us safer because people can go to school, they can get driver's license, they can be witnesses against other violence that they see in the community. Whereas they came forward to profess that, they'd have to be taken up by ICE. And we don't think that we should make our police officers immigration officers. So we think that the sanctuary city makes us safer in our experience. In fact, I heard today, and I don't know if it's true, but somebody said the whole state of California is thinking about becoming a sanctuary state. I know that brings a smile to your face. But
let me just interrupt. Let me just.
Yeah. Well, we are border state too with Mexico. We're border state too, and our people near the border have to express their concerns. But let me say this, one experience. Many of our colleagues and I have visited the Border Patrol in different locations, whether it's in Laredo, where we're at the entry, or whether it's in McAllen, Brownsville, you name it. I've been visited and praised the work of our Border Patrol in all of those places. But in a place like El Paso, for example, it's a community with a border running through it. It's a safer place because there's this respect for law and order and the rest there.
I just want to bring in, since we're on the subject of sanctuary cities, I want to turn to Laura Wilkerson, who's a Republican from Pearl in Texas. She also has a question of border security. It's an issue that prompted her to appear in a presidential campaign ad for President Trump.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Please excuse my voice tonight. There are over 300 cities in this country that are sanctuary cities, like San Francisco. And you're not only choosing to disavow the law, but you're adding sanctuary to people who come there and disavow the law. In 2010, one of the illegals slaughtered my son. He tortured him, he beat him, he tied him up like an animal, and he set him on fire. Story. This happens. And the second part of my question is this. If you need to go home tonight and look up your babies, as you like to say, you, my child, are expendable for someone else to come over here and not follow the law and have a nicer life.
Well, I commend you for sharing your story. I can't even imagine the pain. No, I can't even imagine. There's nothing, I'm sure, that can compare to the griefs that you have. And so I pray for you. I pray for you. And again, we all pray that none of us has to experience what you've experienced. So thank you for channeling your energy to help prevent something like that from happening. But I do want to say to you that in our sanctuary cities, our people are not disobeying the law. These are law-abiding citizens. It enables them to be there without being reported to ICE in case of another crime that they might bear witness to.
Will my son's killer get sanctuary in your city once he's let out of jail?
I'm sorry, dear?
Will my son's killer get sanctuary from
No,
the
of course
law
not.
in your city
Of
when he
course
gets
not.
out of jail?
Was your son in a sanctuary city when this happened?
Houston is. I was just outside.
But is that where your son, was he a victim of somebody in a sanctuary city?
It was a spoken policy at that time. It was not written, but most of the suburbs follow the big cities.
It doesn't matter. You've lost your son, and that's the important thing. But we have to stipulate to a set of facts, and the fact is that no, your son would not get. That's not what the point is. The point is that you do not turn law enforcement officers into immigration officers. That is really what the point is in a sanctuary city. So it's not a question of giving sanctuary to someone who has is guilty of a crime. They should be deported. They should be deported.
So many
or
stories.
sent to jail for what they do.
So many stories.
If you can catch them in time. So thank you. I'm so sorry for your story. Thank you for your courage.
Thank you, Laura, for being here. So many stories on so many different sides of the issue of illegal immigration. I want you to meet Victor Arribas Jr. He lives in El Paso. He has a question for you about immigration.
Greetings, Mayor Polosi. Yes, great city. Just want to thank you and everybody else here. It's a great privilege to be here. I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. My name is Victor Arribas Jr. I was basically, as a 1-year-old baby, a decision I had no jurisdiction over. My sister was born on U.S. soil. She recently was able to petition for both my parents, and they are currently on the path to U.S. citizenship. If DACA is removed, which is a provision I'm under, I will lose my education, which I'm paying for myself. I will lose my as a sign language interpreter, deaf, and ultimately be sent back to Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, a place I don't even know. And I'll be separated from my entire family. What can you do for dreamers as myself and families who are distraught on the idea of being separated?
The dreamers are so spectacular and so inspirational to all of us. And that is why when we had the majority in the Congress, the House of Representatives, led by our Congressional Hispanic Caucus, passed the Dreamers Act. It didn't pass the Senate because you needed 60 votes, and we didn't have 60 votes there. But the president, in the absence of congressional action, issued the executive order to protect the dreamers. But when a dreamer comes forward, they out their parents. And so the parents are in jeopardy, so he did an executive order to protect the parents as well. In your case, your sister, who is a born here citizen, could intercede for your parents, but not for you. I'm hoping that with public opinion, again, coming back to our old friend, the people, that this administration will not be so harsh in lifting the Dreamers' executive action of the president. I spoke to the secretary yesterday. It was yesterday, Monday. I've lost track of time. I was in Kissimmee, Florida, at Valencia College, listening to students there, many of them dreamers. And so when I went to speak to him about the band, I also spoke to him about the dreamers. And that's a conversation that I hope we can continue to have so that we won't jeopardize this beautiful advantage we have, which is the dreamers in our country. But I think it's really important to note this, and this is some of my impatience with President Trump. President Obama acted because Congress refused to act in terms of the dreamers and their parents and some other issues relating to immigration. was president, the Congress in our country, President Reagan and President George Herbert Walker Bush, his vice president, continued that. The two of them together, a higher percentage of protection than even President Obama. President W. Bush was one of our best presidents on immigration, speaks so respectfully of people, newcomers to our country, tried to pass a bill, couldn't convince his party to go along with passing an immigration bill. So this is really the first Republican president, but certainly first Republican president of the three that we've had of the past five presidents, who is going in a different direction on understanding who we are, a nation of immigrants, and the value that our dreamers bring to our country. So I'm hopeful and prayerful, working with people of faith and the rest, that we can convince them to protect the dreamers.
Thank you so much, Victor. I appreciate it. Can I ask you just a quick question? While we're on the subject of illegal immigration, I want to ask you about a somewhat related topic. We were in a meeting recently with President Trump and other congressional leaders, and it's been widely reported, so you're not telling any tales out of school. It's been widely reported that in this meeting, the president claimed that he only lost the popular vote because 3 to 5 million illegal votes were also cast. Obviously, there is no evidence for 3 to 5 million illegal votes. And part of the allegation is among these 3 to 5 million illegal votes that do not exist, as far as we can tell, according to evidence, is a lot of them were undocumented immigrants. What did any of you say, if anything, when he made this wild claim?
Well, he didn't actually say there were illegal, the inference to be drawn was that, but he said 3 to 5 million people voted illegally. Now, I've attended meetings with presidents for the past 15 years as a leader. I would never say what a president says in a meeting. I would say what I say in a meeting. I wouldn't say what one of my colleagues says in a meeting. That's up to them to say. But the Republicans went out and said, President Trump said that he won the popular vote by 3 to 5 million votes. So that made it in the public domain. And Chuck Schumer went out and said, Nancy said, that's not true, Mr. President. There's no evidence to support that. So that's in the public domain. That I said that to him because I was ready. And when I said that, it's not true. There's no evidence to support that. He said, and I'm not even counting California. So, so my reaction to it was, I feel sorry for you. You're the president of the United States and you're so insecure, A. This isn't even true. It's like the size of your inauguration. And I pray for you, Mr. President. I pray for you. But more importantly, I pray for the United States of America, because this is really sad. There is no evidence to support that. But you know what it is? It's a predicate for the president to go out there and say there's voter fraud rampant throughout the country, which is not true. And we've asked every attorney general in the country to come forth with the names of anybody they think that has voted illegally in our country. Can we talk on a positive vein now? Let's say this was last week. We didn't go through the incompetence and recklessness of the ban. We didn't go through the appointment of a person who doesn't even support Supreme Court precedents to the Court of the United States. I thought you were going to ask me, are we going to work with the president? And I would say, where we can engage, we certainly will. We have American economy, where we it's the president of the United States. And by the way, I told him, I'll tell you, I worked on the war in Iraq. What could be worse than that? And privatizing Social Security. We disagreed on those, but we passed some of the most progressive legislation to help poor children. The biggest energy bill in the history of our country. He wanted nuclear. We wanted renewables. We have a big bill. The list goes on. Drugs for HIV/AIDS, all of those kinds of things. So We disagree on certain issues. We respect that he's the president of the United States. We want to work together. But where we will draw the line is if he wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
And we'll talk about that in one. I have to cut you off because we have to pay some bills, but we're going to talk about that in the next block, I promise you. Massive marches across the country last week, but was the White House listening? That's ahead when we come back. Stay with us.
Most exciting technology doesn't go on your wrist. The highly advanced Audi A4 with class-leading horsepower. The future of business in New York State is already in motion. Companies across the state are growing the economy with the help of the lowest taxes in decades, a talented workforce, and world-class innovation. Like in Plattsburgh, where the most advanced transportation is already en route, and in Corning, where the future is materializing. Let us help grow your companies tomorrow, today, at esd.ny.gov.
¿Ella sabe si fotografía? ¡Ah! ¡Mira fotografía! ¡Hace lo que quería!
Whatever you think you know about me, you don't.
Think Khalid found us. We're blown. There will be attacks all over the country.
Thousands will die.
I'm gonna make this right.
Go, go, go! 24 Legacy, Sunday after the Super Bowl on Fox.
Our February sale brings up to 70% off almost everything in the store. With all clearance suits, just $129. All dress shirts for $89. And traveler twill pants, just $49. The February sale, only at Joseph A. Bank. Go to Wix.com to create your stunning. And in New York, we take care of each other.
We believe quality, affordable health care is a human right.
Threatening to tear apart healthcare progress that ensures millions and protects care for all of us. Join Governor Cuomo, Senator Schumer, and New York's hospitals and healthcare workers. Tell Washington to protect our care.
We will not go back to a place where nearly 3 million New Yorkers are uninsured. We will not allow that to happen.
At M&T Bank, we're proud to be a part of the fabric of this community, and proud that all over Buffalo, people are raising the green flag. Now it's your turn. Help us celebrate our 160 years by giving M&T a try. You can even earn a $160 cash bonus. Learn more at any M&T branch.
And tonight with Don Lemon, coming up next.
Welcome back. We're at the town hall meeting with House Minority Leader Nancy Polosi. You wanted to talk about some more positive things. You wanted to talk about the Women's March. You brought that up. I want to introduce you to Madison McCormick. She's a graduate student right here in New York at NYU. Madison.
Hi, thank you, Congresswoman, for the opportunity. When I marched in Washington, I marched in solidarity with women across the world and across the U.S. I then watched Trump's first interview as president on ABC, when he denied hearing the million people outside his front door. I found this troublesome because so many people showed up in the streets, not just in the US, but across the world, around the world. My question to you is, do you find this rhetoric that Trump is saying about denying hearing us even more damaging to our cause? Do we need to be louder? And if he didn't hear us, who did? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Madison. Let me say this. Thank you. Thank you for marching. Alexandra, my daughter, was there with her 2 boys, 9 and 10 years old. And DC, I marched in San Francisco in the driving rain, but it did not dampen anyone's spirits, pun intended. Madison, here's the thing. We don't agonize, we organize. So it's no use saying who heard what there. The women and their families, men, medical system or government, than the increased participation and leadership of women. So I say that to you. Some of what has to happen is as organic as the march. It has to be an issue, a woman's right to choose issue, whatever it happens to be. And it is a pretty exciting thing. And as I said earlier, I think the reason thousands of people were at the airports was because millions of people marched the day after the inauguration. And quite frankly, it really gave us all a boost of morale. So
Leader Polosi, thank you, Madison. Leader Polosi, I want to bring in Rabbi Eric Yaffe from Westfield, New Jersey. You wanted to talk about Obamacare. Rabbi, take it away.
Polosi, I'm a religious leader, and I've spent most of my life working with religious groups to help provide health care for all Americans. Before Obamacare, I saw horrors every day so tragic that they could rip the heart out of the stone. And now I see the president and Republican politicians sitting on their fat health insurance provided by the taxpayers, declaring their willingness to return tens of millions of Americans to the permanent state of anxiety they used to be in when health care was not available. Ms. Pelosi, I believe that if we deny health care to those who need it, we are losing our humanity and we are failing as a nation. What will you and the Democrats do to make sure that this does not happen for us? Really fight for us. And will you hold the Trump administration accountable for their health care policies? And if so, how?
Thank you very much, Rabbi. I rest our case. I mean, you made such a wonderful presentation. But let me just say this, because you spoke from a values place and why this is important to families, to people, to individuals, to our values. We could make the case from an accounting standpoint as well. So if people are not moved by a values discussion, first of all, if there was no reason to pass the Affordable Care Act, if people love their insurance and love their insurer and love their health care, we would still have to do it because the cost were a cost, and it has succeeded in every way. Some of the costs are still going up because of the cost of prescription drugs, but they're going up at a rate lower rate of increase than any time in the over 50 years that they have been measuring this. So now it's also important to note that Affordable Care Act and Medicare and Medicaid are wed. What we did in the Affordable Care Act to prolong the life of Medicare, to make free examinations available to seniors so they can get in sooner at no cost and stay healthier, lower the cost of their prescription drugs by closing what is called the donut hole for younger people. That's the prescription drug benefit. Makes that even more important than addressing the 20 million people who, additionally important. Medicaid, where many middle-income families have spent down their assets and their seniors are in nursing homes, 50% of their care is paid for by Medicaid. You want mom and dad to be living in the attic, the basement, wherever, because they cannot afford to stay in nursing homes, then you support the Republicans overturning the Affordable Care Act. Opioids, don't take it from me. The governor of Ohio, John Kasich, had said, thank God for Medicaid, because that's going to help us address the opioid epidemic. So, okay, so you have that. If you overturn it, you lose 3 to 4 million jobs. 3 to 4 million jobs. But this isn't just about the economics, lowering the cost and all the rest. And it's not just about the 20 million people. It's about the 155 million people who get their insurance through the workplace, whose benefits have greatly expanded. No more pre-existent discrimination because you have a pre-existing medical condition. No more lifetime limits on the care that your insurer can provide. If your child if you have a child that can stay on your policy until 26 years old and no longer is being a woman a pre-existing medical condition.
Thank you.
Now, one more thing, and insurers, the insurance companies must spend 80% of the money that they take in on your health care, not on advertising, CEO pay, and all the rest of that. So to overturn it is, my colleague Jim Clyburn, the third-ranking Democrat in the House, he has said this is the civil rights bill of this century because it enables people to have life, a healthier life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness because they're no longer chained to a job because they get health benefits. There. So Rabbi,
are steel men,
yes,
train men,
yes,
and oil men.
Yeah.
These are the coveted Reagan Democrats. If you ask a Reagan Democrat today about the Democrat Party, you might get the answer limousine liberal. A lot of these workers feel that the core interest groups of the party do not represent their values. For example, the abortion rights activists, the environmental activists, Wall Street lawyers.
Wall Street.
Yes, a lot of Wall Street supports the Democrat Party now, not
They
the
don't
Republican
support
Party.
me. I didn't know what side of the ledger that was going on. No, we don't get much support from
Well, I can assure you, I speak quite a lot with all sorts of industrial people in the Midwest, and that's what we hear.
The impression they have.
So,
okay,
right from the Midwest, if the Democrat Party wants to recapture the Reagan Democrats, they need to begin speaking to some of these issues. My question for you is, how can a Democrat Party, which is separated by political philosophy and economic reality, represent the constituents of the manufacturing Midwest?
Well, I thank you for that question because it's the challenge that some see the party has. I question when you said Wall Street, I'm like, no, Wall Street comes out en masse with its money against House Democrats every election. So that took me down a different path. Here's the thing. The Democrats in the Congress, people say to me, good at keeping people together. They're keeping the Democrats together. I said, I don't keep them together. Our values keep us together. That's what unites us. And while we may have different views on some of the subjects you just named within our own party, the one thing that unifies us is our commitment to America's working families. That's who we are. That is our organized purpose, to protect those American families that you just named among them. And it isn't that we failed in conveying that message. How could it be when we, the Democrats in the House and the Senate, with the President of the United States, bailed out the auto industry? Millions of jobs directly and indirectly saved, yet Ohio, Indiana, Michigan go for the Republicans, who at the time said that what we were doing to this effect, what we were doing is they're not. It's still the case. We're for they're for trickle down economics. You give tax breaks to the wealthy. If it trickles down, that would be good. If they don't, so be it. That's the free enterprise system. That's how they talk. We're talking about trickle up, increase those paychecks, increase the purchasing power of America's working families. But the stagnation in wages that that is part of the heartache of families all over the country, but also in the, and I work closely with the steelworkers. In fact, they named me a woman of steel. I'm proud of that honor from the steelworkers. But it's a challenge, and it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about we're all in this together. I told Norman Lear, I said, you had the right title, All in the Family with Archie Bunker. You're too young to know what that is. All in the Family, but it's all America's family. And if we can work in a bipartisan way to say the jobs of we have to prepare our country for the jobs of the future as we consolidate those that we have, but take people into the future. Some people think the election was divided into those who saw their place in the future and those who didn't, or for their families. And so how do we say we're all moving in this forward together? And as we have new opportunities, they have to be shared. If we're going to have technology and automation, we have to build buildings in which that can take place. We have to build community in which we need schools and healthcare facilities and the rest. So there's plenty of opportunity for jobs that, in addition to the jobs we want to bring back or keep, but also to recognize that are the jobs of the future. But in our caucus, we have this discussion. How did they not know that we're there for them? Well, as I said to a couple, I said, if a wife says to a husband, you're not communicating, and he thinks he is, he's not communicating. So we weren't communicating. And so it's not about who we are, because who we are is to be there for America's working class. And we fight that fight every day against tax breaks to wealthy. And that's the fight we have with Donald Trump right now. No matter what he said on the campaign trail, he's right there to give tax breaks to the rich. And by the way, if they overturn the Affordable Care Act, get this. The 400